One of the clearest moments in modern history has become one of the most morally disorienting, and it's reshaping how we teach, study, and remember the past. We're watching history change, not just being made, but being reshaped, rewritten, reframed in real time. And for a resistance historian, that change cuts deep because Gaza isn't just a current event. It's a crisis for our frameworks. It's collapsing the moral scaffolding we built entire narratives around. And for public historians, that collapse hits a bit harder because our job has never been just to preserve memory, just to archive it. It's to apply it. It's to draw meaning from it. It's to connect that past to our present so that people can use it in their lives, maybe even to make their world a better place. And that's what it demands of us now. That's the point. That's what makes history public. Hey folks, I'm Stoermer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history and the author of the forthcoming A Resistance History of the United States. This moment, the destruction of Gaza under the banner of Holocaust remembrance, is a before and after line. I don't care where you fall politically. I don't care what your institutional affiliations are. I don't care what letters you have after your last name. If you're a historian, and especially if you teach or invoke the Holocaust, you have to reckon with this. The way we talk about World War II and the Holocaust has changed, maybe forever. This is one of those never did I ever think moments. And I mean that literally. Never did I think that the clearest moral reference point in modern history would be destabilized by the very people invoking it. I see it everywhere now. I see it with students. I see it with colleagues. I see it at memorial sites. I see it in curatorial decisions. I see it on panels. I see it in fellowships. I see it in museum redesigns. I see it with Neuengamme and with Dachau and with the Anne Frank House and the Anne Frank Youth Network and the Holocaust Museum in DC and the Museum of Danish Resistance here. Everyone feels it, even if no one quite knows how to talk about it, which is why we need to. Because for most of us, World War II was that 0.01% of history that was easy to teach. Most of history, that 99.99% of it, is hard. It's full of contradictions. There are gray lines everywhere. But World War II has been the exception, especially World War II in Europe. It was the moment where the binaries made sense. The Nazis are the bad guys. The resistors are the good guys. The line between authority and resistance was clear. There were no moral gymnastics required. And that clarity shaped how we understood resistance. It made studying it seem simple, at least compared to everything else. The French underground, the Danish resistance, the Jewish partisans, the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, those aren't gray areas. At least they weren't. Those were acts of moral defiance against genocidal power. No footnotes needed. Even the tactics, blowing up rail lines, forging documents, sabotaging infrastructure, hiding people, killing collaborators. As far as narrative is concerned, clean. Whatever it took to stop the Nazis was understood by most as legitimate. That clarity extended to the tactics of that regime itself. Ghettos, starvation, displacement, ethnic cleansing, extermination. Not controversial terms. Not then. Those were facts. And that's the landscape I started on when I began writing this book. Because World War II in Europe gave us a way in, a way to understand resistance under the most extreme pressure. And it showed us what defiance looked like under the most extreme forms of duress, when all odds, the greatest odds, were against it. And in doing so, by planting that in stark relief, it teaches us, it taught me, how to recognize authoritarian violence when it appeared elsewhere, how it evolved, how it developed, and what it needed to succeed. And what are the elements that doomed it to failure? But something shifted, and that landscape is gone. Because now those same tactics, those that once defined the boundaries of historical evil, are being used again. Starvation, forced displacement, the kind of photos that would not be unfamiliar to people opening up the camps in Poland in 1945. And they're being justified not just by the perpetrators, but by their allies, by the United States and others, as morally necessary, without anybody standing up and saying, no, you must stop, and if not, we will stop you. This is wrong. It was wrong then, it is wrong now. Because what once made the Holocaust so clear as a memory, the nature of the crimes, the uniqueness of the abuse, is now being cited to authorize those same crimes. Gaza is being destroyed by a state that explicitly invokes Holocaust memory as its justification. And the governments backing it, including ours, are calling that clarity, calling that justice. So what does that mean for resistance history? It means the threshold just dropped out from under us. The idea that these tactics belonged only to the worst regimes in history is no longer true. The idea that some things were beyond the pale because we agreed on the moral lesson of the past is gone. World War II is over, and it ended differently than we thought. The context that made these acts historically and ethically unique no longer holds. And within that unraveling, something else is happening. It's a hardening, a boundary being drawn around what we're allowed to say. And scholarship among academics, among people who think for a living and unpack these ideas as problems and talk to each other about it so that we can engage people in the present with what they're supposed to mean. This new orthodoxy is forming, especially around what we call Holocaust exceptionalism. It's a real thing. Some of the same people who once championed the most rigorous Holocaust education are now enforcing limits on who gets to invoke it. They're saying, you cannot compare. You cannot contextualize. You cannot analyze these tactics, even when they look identical, because to do so is, wait for it, anti-Semitism. Even some of the most respected scholars, people I once admired, are aligning with this shift. Deborah Lipstadt, who just finished being a State Department official, supports policies that actively restrict campus speech, equate supports for Palestinian rights with anti-Semitism, and threaten academic freedom under the guise of protecting Jewish students. It's incoherent. It's indefensible. And it's not what we were taught the study of history was for. Did Professor Lipstadt just suddenly stop being a tremendous scholar, unafraid of going where the facts lead? I don't want to think so. Because the whole point of studying power, atrocity, resistance, and memory is to learn from it. It's got to be useful. It's not to seal it off in a sacred box. If we can't talk about how state violence operates, if we can't trace the tactics of extermination across regimes, then what was the point of learning about the Holocaust in the first place? Now, I don't study a Holocaust as such. I study resistance. I study the people who blow things up, sabotage infrastructure, who act when power demands submission. I study how people organize when their survival ain't guaranteed. I study the ones who refuse to accept their place in someone else's story. And the way we used to talk about World War II helped make that history legible. But that's changed. All that has changed. Because history isn't just being made in Gaza, it's being changed retroactively. We're not just watching a genocide unfold, we're watching the moral compass of modern memory collapse. We're watching the frameworks we used to teach people how to identify abuse get rewritten in real time. So wherever you stand on Gaza, wherever your sympathies lie, understand this. The way we talk about World War II and the Holocaust has changed. And if you're in this field, if you teach it, invoke it, preserve it, or use it as a frame, use it to help people today understand how that past relates to them, then you're already a part of that shift. Whether you acknowledge it or not. That's what Gaza has done to resistance history. That's what it has done to public history. And that's why it's not just about now. It's about whether history still has a point.